Stylized illustration is another way to kind of build this integrity where it's easily recognizable as maybe part of a whole. If you're doing, icons for, say you're doing a website or something, and you want different icons for all these different things. Maybe a contact is a telephone, and about us is a person or something like that. But you want all of these to kind of fit in a set. You might get a certain style of illustration and use that to get your point across. And there's also something they talk about indexed signs. And an index sign is where you might use an object that is associated with something that you want, with the idea that you want to get across, but it's not the idea itself. The example they give is, of a bird. You might have a picture of an egg to represent the idea of a bird. So that gets even more abstract, I guess. And it's kind of hard to tell because a bird, an egg could be a bird, or it could be a chicken or a duck. I mean, I know all these are birds, but it's not real precise. So that depends on what you're going for. Okay, and on 176, there's some really good examples of this kind of icon making, where they're recognizable objects, and with a little tweaking, you can really kind of strip it down to the bare bones thing. When you're talking about illustration, obviously the medium is important. There are a lot of different ways you can go. You can use pencil drawings, charcoal, ink. You can do paint. There's engraving and printmaking and all these different ways. Silkscreen, line of cut, etching, all kinds of stuff. And that's important to take into account too, because basically the biggest statement that I get out of this chapter is on page, where is it? There we go. On page 173, it says, an illustration's success lies in the appropriateness of its style to the subject matter at hand. And that is really true, and that's kind of overarching about imagery in general, is the medium and the subject matter and how you represent an idea through imagery is only as good as how appropriate it is to what you're trying to get across, to the subject matter. If you were trying to talk about technology and the new advancements in technology, and you used black and white old time photography to get that across, there's a disconnect. That doesn't work. Or if you were talking about the Renaissance masters with painting, and the imagery that you used was glossy digital art, that doesn't really fit the subject matter. Does that make sense? So you want to take in all these things into account. And the medium that you use often says more than the subject matter itself. Looking at these examples on 175, there's a coffee cup depicted with several different mediums, and as you look at them, you kind of see each one has sort of a different feel to it. So it's just important to take that into account. Another type of kind of medium you can use to create imagery is collage, or photo montage, whatever you want to call it. Depends on what you're using, I guess. And with all of this, a knowledge of art history comes in handy. I don't know if you guys have to take art history classes as part of your major. I had to take a bunch when I was in school, and at the time, it was kind of a pain in the butt. I didn't really like it, but now it really helps me. It really helps to have this knowledge of art history and what's gone on, and sort of how people have represented things in the past, both the successes and the failures, because it helps with your own ideas and representation. You might want to reference things from the past. If you're doing a political poster, against something that trying to talk bad about something, you might want to reference the communist propaganda posters or something like that. Might give it a negative connotation that you're looking for. And that's just an example. But it really helps to know what's going on in the past, because it kind of helps you prepare for the future, I guess. It gives you a better idea of what works and what doesn't. So you're not just guessing. You kind of have a reference point of things that have worked in the past. So collage, this is relatively recent development, in the past, 75 years or so. People just started collaging to create richer images. It started out with painters that were putting stuff on their canvas, besides just paint. And now it's moved into, you can combine, photos with textures that maybe you scanned in, or multiple photos together. Digital collage is a little more loose of a term. You can, torn bits of paper along with digital objects and found objects and all this kind of stuff to create a richer image that maybe fits better with your idea. If you're, for example, let's say you're doing an article about, I don't know, the internet and all the different stuff that you can find on the internet. Maybe it's an article for people who have never used the internet. I don't know if those people still exist. But you might want to, there's so much different stuff with that subject matter. A collage might be a good way to show that, because you could have articles, and you could have photographs, and you could have objects, and all these different things that kind of adds to the idea. Not only is it multiple images in one, but the whole collage thing kind of adds to the idea of all the different things that you can find and all just the huge variety. So you just again, you're thinking about what is appropriate for the subject matter and the message that I'm trying to convey. And that's really the important thing. You start with an idea, or whatever your job may be. You're given an assignment or a project. And instead of just saying, well, let me find a picture of it and plop it on the page and be done, to be a good designer, it really involves a little more than that. You have to think about, what is the best medium for this? Well, should it be a photograph? Should it be an illustration? And once you get that, what kind of photograph, what kind of illustration, photorealistic or more abstract, more painterly, should I do a collage, just all these different things, and it gives you, overall it's going to give you a much better piece in the end. Type as image, this kind of goes back to last chapter with typography, how we kind of started looking at type as more than just letters. Excuse me. How if you really start examining type, it's just lines and circles and all this kind of stuff, and that can be a graphic element, a visual element in the piece. And this combination of imagery and type, that basically is logo design, that's one of my favorite things to do, because you're kind of trying to sum up the idea of an entire organization in one image, basically, or one word and an image or something. And I just think it's almost like designing book jackets or something. It's just, I really like the idea of summing up a larger idea into one kind of image. And to me, if you can do that well, then you can do anything related to graphic design well. So type as an image, there's some examples on 182 and 183 of the different things you can do. If you can incorporate words into an image, like maybe the word fire if you can incorporate those letters into flames, it kind of it doubles your idea, the power behind it. Or if you have, like, for instance, the example, I'll show you this ant farm thing. See if you can see that. Wait, hold on. Yeah, right there. How they took a little ant. They used a kind of a abstracted icon of an ant for the space in the A. And that combination, it seems relatively simple, but it's a very powerful image, because it's a combination of a word ant and the image ant, which kind of just reinforces that idea of the ant in your head, and it's going to stick with you a lot more than just one or the other. And so that is, a lot of logo designers use that strategy. If they can find these clever ways to combine image and type, it just reinforces the image more and more, and it's just a really good thing to understand.